Hello, this is Diego Saldivar with a bit of a new update with Crown. So, just like I said last time, I decided to take the web app that they give us as an example in JavaScript and try to see if I can reproduce that in Unreal Engine. Let's see how that panned out for me. So, just to recapitulate, here we are using the Neurosity Crown in order to see if we can make a neuro game. So first I wanted to create a minimum viable product. So I wanted to reproduce this first web app, at least in function, so that my project in Unreal may look like this. As you can see in the example, you can input your email and your password. If you forget to put your email, your password, or put a different email or password, it will give you a heads up. Hey, this is not working for me. As soon as you log in, you can select your own device in case you have more than one. In my case, I only have one. I select it, and then I can see my calmness and focus in real time, as well as if it's charging, if it's online, and sometimes when it's updating, etc., etc. And guess what? I was able to do it. As you can see, I can also give some heads up to the user. Hey, there may be this problem. Once you log in, you can also see and select which devices you have. You can select them, and just like the other one, it also gives you focus and calmness in real time. Now, of course, there may be a few variations in how I inform the player of certain things, but that's because I'm a bit lazy. So how did I do it? First, I needed to be able to use Node JavaScript in Unreal Engine because it doesn't natively support JavaScript or Node.js. There is a plugin that's much better maintained, but it's just for JavaScript. Node.js needs this specific, a bit experimental plugin that I talked about last time. It does have a pre-release for Unreal Engine 5, so I went ahead and used that one. So since I can just copy paste the CSS and JavaScript that we had in the first web app, I had to start from the beginning with the first Node app. I had to download Node.js to be able to package some modules just like they require. Now, here they need you to start the npm init, but before you do that, you have to hack a few little things. So once you download the plugins for Node.js and Socket.io, which are necessary to run our program, you will have to go to the plugins, Node.js, content, scripts, and copy these Node modules into your content scripts folder. Otherwise, certain modules will not be just found. I think this is a bug. I hope that they fix this up later on. And then in your content scripts folder, you have to start all the process of initiating your own Neurosity script. Just follow the instructions and npm init. That may be overwriting some files, but that's okay because what you want is to get the files that you're missing, usually for IPC event emitting, which are not automatically there. Also, you want to be able to package your script so that the engine knows where to look for the modules that you're going to be using. And most importantly, you have to install the Neurosity dependencies. Otherwise, you will not be able to communicate with your Crown. When it comes to authentication, this first example requires a .env environment file in order to be able to get the information from another source. But you should disregard this for Unreal Engine 5 because this plugin does not play nice with these .env files. So you should actually follow the API guide on authentication, and I'll tell you how to plug information from Unreal Engine into the JavaScript in just a moment. So this is how my code looks like. First, I put a bit of a thank you note and some instructions for those who would like to attempt to do this by themselves. There's also information about that in the GitHub repository where I uploaded this script. And I had to add some sort of foolproofer when it comes to feeding emails and passwords to Firebase, which is the module that you use to be able to log in, because it doesn't like empty spaces or badly formatted emails. The web app used CSS to be able to check before it sent anything, but I am double checking here and there. And here we start with the juicy meat. I have not a function, but rather an event called Neurosity Logger to log in, where I feed it args, which is basically one string, which has the email, space, the password, which it then uses to separate and then check if those are correct. I found it to do it easier this way instead of feeding it an array and then opening the array and trying to check if the array is right or not. So there's many ways of getting to Rome. Then I have the Neurosity emitter event, where I get all the information I want from the cloud, which is taking information from the crown. In this case, I'm getting its state, its battery, if it's charging or not, which I use for the status, and then of course the calm and the focus scores, which are also used next to the status. And then of course just a Neurosity logout in order to log out. I just put it aside just in case. And I do not know if this main is super necessary, but I would rather keep it there. You never know. Now, it is very important for you to know where you have to put your scripts. It has to be in content scripts. Otherwise, the plugin will not be able to find your script. You can make subfolders inside of scripts, but it will always look for scripts as its root. So how did I start? Well, if you go into the level blueprint, and yes, I also commented my blueprints. First, you have to start on full screen mode. And here I make the screen solution a bit smaller so that I can have a windowed application. Otherwise, I would have to deal with having to put an X instead of the graphic user interface and finishing the game, etc., etc. In this case, if it's windowed, it's easier to get out. Then you will be spawning the HUD. You should not be spawning anything else here, really, because if you spawn here, some other blueprints which you will be needing in other levels, it'll be difficult to get them from the level blueprint. So that's why in here I only spawn the HUD, which will be spawning everything else. Once I spawn the HUD, I tell it to spawn the most important blueprint of them all, the Neurosity Node.js, where I am connecting directly to the JS script, JavaScript. Then we set it as our Neurosity node, which we will be then sending to the widget blueprint where all the magic happens. Then we add that widget to the viewport once it already has been fed the spawned blueprint. And we tell to set the input mode to UI only. We just take the player controller by default. And we tell it to focus on the text box for the email so that you don't have to go ahead and click. You can just start typing your email right away. Then later on, I tell it what to do with enters. So what's so important about the Neurosity Node.js blueprint? Well, it basically communicates with the JavaScript script that I just showed you. So the first thing I do is not communicate with the JavaScript, but first rather check if the email and the passwords are actually there. Otherwise, we tell the player, please fill in the form. I call this a sanity check. If both are there, then I tell the player, please wait for a few seconds, and yes, we are logging in. Then we try to catch any login errors in case they're necessary. Now you will see that first I take all of the IPC.emit information and then I emit the entire event. That is to say, for instance, event name is called login error here. And then later on, I tell it to emit the event Neurosity logger. How does that look in the code? So in the code, things go a little bit backwards. Login error is first bound to a function inside of Unreal Engine, which is called, in this case, onLogin error. This is a custom event I called a login error, which will then set the login error message, which will be taken by the graphic user interface. And of course, just set the button text back to login, please, instead of logging in forever. Then after all the other emits have been bound to a function, it is then that we emit the entire event. Neurosity logger, as you can see, Neurosity logger. And in this case, these args are going to be fed right here into the message. So in this case, I appended one string with the committed email, again, from the graphic user interface, space, even though you cannot see it here. Yes, there's a space as a separator, and then the committed password. So that is being fed here, which means that if I don't get anything, which usually I will be getting a message in the log. Otherwise, I will split this array. The first thing will be the email, the second thing will be the password. And then I will be calling this function to check if the password is actually there, or if the password does have an @ If it doesn't have an @, it's wrongly formatted, and then Firebase can crash. So I instead append an @dummy mail to make Firebase actually try and fail, but give me an error instead of a crash. The same goes for password. If there's no password, I just put a dot, which is, I hope, not anyone's password. The same goes for instance, Neurosity emitter. In this case, I want to get the device state string, which is an emit I am getting. I emit this if the status is not null, the battery is not null, or the charging is not null. There was a deprecation of some older code which made me do this, but I just wanted to keep it instead of just emitting immediately and emitting maybe a null value that could crash Unreal Engine. And then of course I finished by emitting the entire event with the args, which is basically the device nickname that the user will be choosing. And then of course, just to finish, Neurosity logout, which has no arguments or anything that it receives, which is why this message is empty. But it certainly does something, and it returns something. So by return, I mean it emits. So I bind it to a function called onLoggedOut, which will be giving me a false boolean telling me, oh, you're no longer logged in. And in this case, I just reset the login error message because I found out that if you don't, you will be going back to the first login screen with the old login errors. So it's just a cleanup. And of course, neither of this would work if you don't actually use a Neurosity node component and tell it to go to the default script path Neurosity app.js. If you had a subfolder with other scripts, you would actually write it here like subfolder / name.gis. And of course, this node also has events that you can use, such as onConsole log, onScript begin, onScript end, but I had to use emitters in order to be able to catch specific information instead of just the behavior of the script. So I am taking the information that those emits give us and plug them right into variables that are public in the editor so that other blueprints can take information directly from there instead of having to find the blueprint and then having to take the information each and every time and emit each and every time, but rather the blueprint is just working its own thing on its own. And this would be a prime suspect for a singleton. I mean, if you want to take this information and not have to log in every single time in other levels. So with that being said, how do I plug all that information into the graphic user interface? Because that is the entire point of this exercise. Something that's kind of important is to first and foremost during your event construct to catch the only blueprint instance of Neurosity Node.js. So it's get actor of class, cast to this kind of blueprint. This cast is necessary, otherwise it breaks. Disregard the note of this is already a blueprint value. And then of course set your canvases. So as you can see, there's a lot of button presses, but the thing that interests me most is to clean up the event tick, because this basically works each and every single tick, that's to say, many times per second. Some things I want to keep updating, such as scores or status. But sometimes I want to only update things once per request. However, since I have to wait for the script, and actually the script says await. Since sometimes I have to await for some information, I may need the tick to tick until it gets information. I feel like this is a bit inelegant, but that's the way I could do it, and it worked, which is basically to call the update devices function that I have here in the blueprint. I will show it to you in a moment, and then set visibility of the canvases as necessary. Some other things are very straightforward. For instance, if I hit the login button, or if I hit enter while I'm in the password box, well, then I will tell it to attempt to log in and then send the committed email and password, which will later be appended into string as I showed you previously, and call the onLogin clicked from the Neurosity node blueprint. And if it's clicked, then we reset and try to get the devices yet again. So all of this is basically the logic of the graphic user interface. I created certain functions to be able to make things easier on me. For instance, update status. As you can see, how do you update the status window? Well, first of all, you get a very important piece of information from the status emission. You can get strings, specifically online, offline, shutting off, updating, booting. I basically copied the logic of the CSX example that I showed you previously. So if you are online, first I have to see if you're charging. If I am charging, instead of giving you an online with a green button, I give you a moon saying sleep mode, otherwise it's online. And I use an icon that I created there to be able to tint it. The same goes if you're offline. Well, I tell you I'm offline, the battery is unavailable, instead of just making it invisible and giving you a red color. Otherwise, you get orange if you're updating, or if it's offline, it would be grayish, and so on and so forth. That's just to update the status window. When you're updating devices, it's a little bit easier because the script will give you an array of elements, that's to say, of devices that you have to your name. And then I can take that array and give it to the drop-down menu for you to select. And that's basically it. If you actually want to check out all the comments and the code, you can actually go to the GitHub and get it. I will put the link in the description below, but basically this is what you would see. The README has some information that you may want to check if, for instance, you want to start from scratch instead of copy-pasting my own. I have a few caveats here and there, which I already discussed in this video. And a frequently asked questions section. If you ask me a few questions, you may get your question featured. If you want to download it, you can just go to the releases and download this zip, which you can unzip, and then if you double click on the U project file, then Unreal Engine 5 will be able to construct and build. It will say that there's some modules that are either not there or were built in a previous engine. You just say, yeah, build them in, whatever, and wait for your project to unfold. I tried my best to use the Unreal Engine 5 style guide from game making in order to conform to the traditions of people who are far more experienced than I am in using Unreal Engine. Maybe I may have combined it a little bit with Unity's own style, but I hope that you can forgive me and point me to the right direction yourselves when you give me your comments and questions. So as you can see, it is feasible. Now I have had a few problems with it. Mainly when I package this for Windows, sometimes people get stuck in the login, mostly because the Node.js doesn't quite communicate with the server. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's a permissions problem. I asked for some help in the Node.js plugin forums to see how that pans out. Also, when I tried to export this, well, package this for Android, there's a Windows H not found problem that usually doesn't happen when I package any other kind of project without the plugin. So I'm thinking that the plugin may need some updates. While we wait for them, I'll try to see if I can solve this by myself. Otherwise, so far, at least we know we can export games for Windows. We just have to check that Node.js doesn't get in the way of the actual fun. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that that is helpful or at least entertaining for you. If you happen to find ways to solve the problems that I encountered, please do reach out and maybe just go into the GitHub and propose your own changes. Thank you very much. I will see you next time.